Hi, this is Paul Alexander. We did a great Zoom today. We just finished it with Willie Anderson, the great semifinalist for the Hall of Fame, played right tackle for us, played 13 seasons and gave up 16 sacks. Unbelievable, a great player. And it's great for anyone who wants to listen, coach, player, anyone interested in blocking. It's a great Zoom. It's coming up. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. Before I do that, I want to talk about three things. One, February 28th, 29th in Atlanta, Willie and I are doing a lineman camp. It's going to be great. 2 days of video, classroom work, and field work, advanced level stuff for kids of all ages. All right. Number two, next month's Zoom is going to be Kyle Flood, the great offensive line coach at the University of Alabama. And then in March, our next Zoom will be with Alex Mirabel, the great offensive line coach at the University of Oregon. So join us here on Patreon. What is Patreon? If you want to be a great offensive line coach, I can help you get there. I get 5 posts a week on different techniques, skills, fundamentals, plays, you name it, all in the search and quest of becoming a great offensive line coach. So join me on Patreon, and here it is. Without further ado, Willie Anderson.
All right. Hey, we got a nice crew here. Thanks, everyone, for coming. This is a real honor today. Willie Anderson. Now, you got some young guys here I'm seeing in your pictures, and you're like, well, who the hell's Willie Anderson? Well, Willie he was a great high school kid from Mobile, Alabama. He was, I don't know if they had 5 stars then, but he certainly would have been a 5-star player from Mobile. And he went to Auburn, where he was a really good player. And he came out, and he was one of the youngest guys to ever come out as an offensive lineman. He was really developed and big and powerful. And then Willie, I coached him for all but 1 or 2 of his years where he went to the Ravens. I coached him, and Willie Anderson was the best tackle in football. He played 13 years. Think about this now. He played 13 years in the NFL and gave up 16 sacks. That's unbelievable. I mean, there's guys right now, rookies. I've seen rookie offensive tackles who have given up 10 this year already. I mean, they got a problem. They're playing from a hole. This guy knows how to pass block and run block. Believe me, he gets credit for all those sacks, but he was a big, powerful run blocker. He was a tremendous run blocker. That's really what he was first. That we had this running back, Corey Dillon, who broke all kinds of NFL rushing records because our basic play was, Corey, go run behind Willie. We called it 16 Will, all right? And that was our basic play. And so Willie's retired, and he was one of 15 players that were considered for the Hall of Fame. He's one of the 15 guys that retired. He's in a very minority of players, but he now trains guys, and he still thinks about blocking, and he works with kids, and we spend a lot of time together. And to have an hour, and I'm going to shut up here in a second, but to have an hour to get inside his mind of what he thought about, technique, yeah, but inside his mind of what he thought about blocking people is really beautiful stuff, and you're going to love it.
Hey, Paul, can I interject something quickly here?
This is Bob Wiley. See the guy with the big mustache, the walrus, right? He's the guy that said, how did we win World War II? With push-ups and sit-ups, right, Bob?
Yeah, I can't understand that shit. We did push-ups, sit-ups, climbed the rope, and ran, and we won 2 world wars.
Yeah, right? We didn't squat and bench,
right? But I got to tell you a quick story about Willie. We went down to Auburn to work out a guy named Gandy, okay, who was coming out at that time. He was a tackle for Auburn, okay, and Rick Trickett was the line coach, and he took care of the line coaches as we came in. We had our own separate room. We didn't have to stay with the scouts, so we just the line coaches. And there had to be about 20 of us that were there, okay? So we're watching the film, okay? We're watching Gandy, and all of a sudden, somebody said, well, who's the right tackle? Who the hell is that big son of a gun playing right tackle? I think his number was 70. Who's that guy? And Trickett's going, no, don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. And Gandy's over there. He's on the left side. Yeah, but tackle. Well, no, don't worry about him. He's just a freshman. All right, don't worry about that. It was Willie.
Yeah.
Everybody now was watching Willie. We didn't give a fuck about the other guy.
Yeah.
How you doing, Wild?
Hey, Willie, how you doing, pal? Good to see you.
See you, brother.
Yeah. So that was a tremendous story. And with that, Willie, you got it. Go ahead.
How you guys doing? I'm Willie Anderson. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. We're from Pritchard, Alabama. Pritchard is a small county right outside of Mobile, Alabama. Mobile is the home of the Senior Bowl. You guys know about that. Also, the original birthplace of Mardi Gras. Not New Orleans, it's Mobile. But I played a high school called Vira High School. In 1988, my 8th grade year, they won ESPN's first national championship. They were the first and only national championship in the state of Alabama history. That team was unbelievable. I came the next year, 1989, as a true freshman. My coach who picked me up for practice the first day is a guy by the name of Robert Dr. Doom Brazil. Just made the NFL Hall of Fame about 3 years ago, 2017. He was like Lawrence Taylor before Lawrence Taylor. And I always tell players, college guys, high school and pros, we had no YouTube back then. There was no social media, anything we can follow to have any kind of access to pro coaches or even pro players. Like we knew none of them. So Robert Brazil, my coach Brazil, was like our YouTube. He was our YouTube. Like he gave us all the info and gave us the ability to dream about being in the NFL from his stories. So my freshman year, it was starting 6 games, and my 4th game of the season was on ESPN because every returning national ranked high school team have a ESPN game. My first game, I'm 14 years old, I'm 6'5", 275, and I get my ass destroyed on national TV by a guy by the name of Carl Montgomery. Carl Montgomery was like 5'10", 225 pound defensive end senior. I gave up 4 sacks, national TV. Now, Robert Brazil introduced me to ESPN because he knew the staff from the NFL. So he pulled me up, saying, this new freshman coming out of Viga High School. They pulled me up, pregame, all this. I got my ass beat for 4 sacks. Right, not ESPN. It was so bad that I got up that night. I was in the middle of the night sleepwalking, honest to God. Middle of the night sleepwalking in my pass stance, trying to block this guy. I was having freaking nightmares of this dude, man. That was the regular season. We played him again in the playoff, and my coach was an old guy by the name of Harold Clark, one of the greatest coaches in Alabama history. Coach Clark motivated you by trying to scare you and demean you. He told me, he said, how are you gonna block that guy? That guy's 20 years old. He's gonna kick your ass all over the field. What you gonna do to him? I'm like, shit, coach, I'm scared as hell. You saying that? You're scaring me. Like, I have no idea. There's film of this on Facebook. I held this guy. The next game we played him, I held him. I'm a freshman. I had no clue how to block. My coaches didn't really, they were really good coaches. Roger Dearman was a really good coach. But back in '89, we were running the football. You ran the football. There was no pass protection. We had heard about a kid upstate in Alabama running this new offense called a shotgun offense. Like, we knew nothing about pass protection. It was all about running the football. So, that freshman year destroyed. Like, I could have been destroyed because as a 14-year-old freshman, yes, I'm a big guy, but I'm still 14 years old in my mind. My mindset was that of a kid. So my coaches were telling me, just go block the guy. Just go block him. And that's why I'm so big anti-coaches who tell big guys, just go be big and tough and go block the fucking guy. That's not football. So my 10th grade year, come back the next year, I'm one of 2 returning starters on the team the next year. We're still a big-time ranked team. I'm now 6'6", 305 pounds at 15 years old. And the first 4 games of the season, I was 6'6", 305. I was the biggest, and I was the worst freaking player on the team. If you went about the grade charts, I graded the worst on the offensive line. I was the biggest dude. This is not 1990. So you guys can imagine older guys, coaches. 1990, 305 was big as hell back then for a high school kid. You know what I mean? I'm getting my ass destroyed. And more of this getting destroyed, more just run blocking. I wasn't coached. They told me to go block the guy. I just couldn't do it. So we in practice one day, and my head coach, Harold Clark, was an old white guy. Now we're in the middle of the hood head coach is an old white guy. He chewed cigars. He didn't smoke them, he chewed them. He chewed them and spit all day, just chewing and spitting. And we were doing 907 inside run. And again, I'm facing a guy who's 5'10", 230 pounds. Coach Murphy laughed because I told the story before. Dude named Chris. Chris was a backup D lineman. He was an older guy, but Chris never really played because we had some really good. On my high school team, we had 150 guys on the team. Like no one played both ways. We were a powerhouse. So the backup guys used to be competing against us, the first team guys, trying to convince the coaches to play. Chris wearing my ass out one day at practice. 907 inside run. I couldn't block him for damn. I'm taking one long step, falling on the ground, reaching for him. I couldn't get it. Coach Clark stopped practice. He had a cigar and he spit it out. He said, I can't take this effort shit no more. He said, your big ass is always on the ground. I can't take it. You're on the ground every damn play. So he stopped practice. And while ridiculing me, he taught me the basis of football, in which I still use to this day. But he ridiculed the hell out of me now. He stopped practicing and stood beside me. He said, you're taking these big ass long steps. He said, you're 6'6", this guy's 5'10". He said, you won't get him on one step. He said, now watch me and do what I do. He stood beside me, stopped practice, had his whistle in one hand. He said, take one fast step like this, boom. And I said, boom, slow ass step. He took his whistle, hit me in my ass. Pow! That's too damn slow. Oh man, so now, all y'all kids on the line, you guys know you guys gonna be laughing. All my teammates are laughing. I'm getting ridiculed. Offensive line coach is kind of irritated because the head coach is now teaching me. He said, no, take a faster step. It took about 8-10 minutes for me to go, boom, one fast step. He said, now, your second step has to come fast, just as fast at that step. Your second step is probably more important than your first step. I'm like, what? Okay. He said, so now, he said, take a 1-2 step. Boom, boom. I said, boom, boom. Took his whistle out, hit me in my ass again. That's too damn slow, damn it. Now, everybody laughing. Kids laughing. The guy, Chris, who would just beat my ass, he's laughing because I'm getting ridiculed. I'm hating this. He said, take a faster 1-2 step. Boom, boom. About 20 minutes into doing that, I finally got it. I can go, boom, boom, 1-2 step to the right, boom, boom, to the left. I got it down. 20-30 minutes practice. The whole practice stopped to coach me. He said, now, line it back up. We line back up, run a play. He said, now before Chris takes one step, you get your big ass 2 steps in the ground before he gets 1 step. Oh, okay. He said, before you touch him, you take 2 fast steps and bring your hands on your second step. He demoed it and showed it to me. I said, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that. We lined back up. They said, say hut. Boom. I took 2 fast steps. I grabbed Chris' little ass and I ran with him and dumped him. Boom. 10 yards. The whole team going crazy. Chris mad now. He said, do it again, damn it. Line back up. I missed him. I took a slow step. I took a slow step. Third play, I did it again. Boom, 1-2, got him, pancaked him again. He said, that's how you practice, and that's how you block. And I said, well, shit, if y'all had told me this last year, I probably would have never got ridiculed. You know what I mean? I never knew any of these points. You guys just told me to go out there and block him. So the light came on from that week. I went from being the worst player on the team to the next week I won Mobile County's Offensive Lineman of the Week. That's a big deal down in Mobile. Where you go eat a buffet dinner, you give a speech, and your name's in the paper. The next week, I won it again. And now I'm super hyped. My confidence is going sky high. My confidence went from nothing, shit, to sky high in a matter of 2 weeks. The third week, I played a guy who was committed to Alabama. Again, he was a senior. I was a 15-year-old sophomore. I destroyed him, killed him. I should have won the player of the week again, but I didn't win. I was mad as hell. But my sophomore year, I ended up being first team All-State. Junior year, first team All-State. My senior year, I was number 1 lineman in the country. I was the first lineman and the only lineman in Alabama history to win 6A Player of the Year. Years later, a guy by the name of Andre Smith, that Paul coach, he won Mr. Football as an offensive lineman. But I won 6A Player of the Year in the state as the first lineman to do that. So my point is, in doing two things, it doesn't matter where you start at, and technique is super important, no matter how big or how small you are. You know what I mean? I tell small linemen who are afraid of big, especially in high school. It probably happen more in high school than any level. The smaller you are, the bigger a guy is, the more important those two steps are. Because if he gets his two steps going faster and you're afraid and you only take one step or you don't move, he's going to run your ass over. But most big guys have a hard time getting going fast with their first two steps. So you as a young offensive lineman, you can concentrate in run blocking on getting your first two steps in the ground before you touch that guy. Now it's hard to do because you're all hyped up. Your mind says, okay, I gotta get him. And you take one step and you miss him and you fall on the ground. But if you tell yourself, you have to trust your technique. If I can get my two steps in the ground before I cock my hands back and touch this guy, you're gonna be in good shape. And that kind of leaves me off because all my training sessions, I start off with run blocking every day. And, you know, high school kids come in every day, want to come in and do pass protection because you guys are going to these camps and combines and you're being judged on how you pass pro. And I understand that. But I think in learning those first two steps in the run game, that carryovers, in my opinion, into pass protection. So in my training sessions, I start off with, run blocking, and we transition into, as we go along weeks and weeks, into pass protection. Because being the mindset it takes to be a dominant run blocker, to me, helps you to become a dominant pass blocker. People say, well, how so? Well, I just said about the first two steps, your first two steps in run blocking. In pass sets, a pass set really starts with two steps as well. But what I teach in my training, I teach what I call having a perfect stance. So to me, every training session I have with pros, college, high school, I start with their stance. Most high school guys have awful stances, and I tell them, they come to the gym, I say, okay, your first day here, I don't care if it's one guy or a group, I would say, hey, come in, show me your awful ass stance that I know you have. And everybody gets all shocked. Because I tell them, I know your stance is awful, get in and show it to me. They get into it, and the first thing they do, they get up, and here's what most high school linemen do. They get up, you guys can see me, they get up, and the first thing they do is plop their back down and get their stance. All right? That's what I call, and Willie and Paul and any of the coaches on here, I learned a long time ago that coaches evaluate guys if they're knee benders or if they're back benders. Well, most big offensive linemen and small linemen too, the first thing you get down into, you get in your stance, you use your lower back. And I learned this years later in my career, and Paul will tell you this, when I started doing Pilates. I started because I couldn't train the same way I trained as a 21-year-old kid as I did at 30. So I learned that most of us big guys, your back and your legs are your two biggest muscles. For linemen, our back is probably the most overworked muscle in our body because it's the biggest muscle, so we use it the most. And so what I call my perfect stance, my stance is I want to make you get out of your stance by using your ankles. Like Paul loved to joke about me having small ankles, small calves. And I say, the best athletes, they move from their ankles. We as linemen, you guys can see this right here. Most linemen move from their lower back. They get in their stance, and the first thing they do is move from their back. You guys see that? Put your back some more. Yes, good. So most linemen get in their stance. First, you say get set, they get down here. What I want to do is teach guys to bend down from your ankles. Well, you say, how you do that? So when you bend through your ankles, it's basically, I'm getting in my stance, and instead of going here, my stance, instead of going here, I want to put my feet down. I want to push the floor down in my stance and bend down to my ankles. Use my ankles, and gradually put my hand down as I get down. I don't know if you guys can really see that really good or not.
Yeah, we saw it great.
Say again?
It was great. Yeah.
So my point is, because I get back, it's bothering me. My point is, using your lower back to get in your stance is going to make you use your lower back. Your lower back is a bigger muscle. You're going to move slower, in my opinion, than if you get in your stance with all your pressure and pressure point in your feet, your lower feet, your ankles, your big toe, from your big toe to your arch. Big toe to your arch is where you're going to move from. So, again, most high school kids, if you tell a high school kid, get in your stance, he's going to bend over from his waist. I want you to gradually get here and gradually sink yourself down before doing this. There's this, and then that's get my stance to my ankles as I'm getting down, put my hand down while I'm bending through my ankles. Now, I've tried teaching that before on a Facebook Live. It's impossible. It's impossible. Like, if I was hearing me teach this, I would be like, what in the hell is he talking about? Like, because it makes sense, because I learned this right here. I learned that if you want to look at a receiver or a defensive end or any of these quick, fast guys, they all move through their ankles. They're faster, they're quicker than us. Linemen, because we overuse our back. You see linemen right here. I know me. I was a career fat guy. So when I'm in my stance all bad, I get up, I'm doing the fat man walk. You know, because my lower back is hurting. You know what I mean? Because we wear our lower backs out, and the longer you play football, if you're fortunate enough or blessed enough to play football for a long time, you're gonna have a couple things. You're gonna have terrible big toes. You're gonna have arthritis in your big toes, and you're gonna have lower back problems because we wear our lower backs out because we stay bent over so much in our stance. And teaching from the ground up, teaching to bend down from your ankles, to bend in your ankles. Coaches love to say, be knee benders. I call it to be ankle benders. And the guys who have enough flexibility in their ankles to bend from their ankles, to me, are the better linemen. Paul, that makes sense to you?
I think that's a terrific explanation, really. And it talks about, can I interject a little bit? That when Willie blocked, we were just talking about that this morning. I'm working with a high school kid down here. I'm in Naples and stuff. And he kind of goes, Well, when Willie blocked, Willie was with his feet. And he had a compact quickness and because that's how elite guys block, like Willie. Willie didn't take these big, long, mechanical step by the numbers kind of thing, like he's at some dance school. You know what I mean? It was all really just really quick, sudden, boom, 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 boom. And you explained why you thought that was, and I'm leading that into a question to you, because tell me why you think that is. Because I when we talked about that earlier, I think it's something that these guys would like to hear.
Well, I think sometimes line coaches, because the way we grew up playing football, especially if you guys our age, I'm 45 years old. We grew up playing football, rough, tough, pounding, running the football, all this stuff. I was telling Paul early on that I remember being in the 9th grade, hearing about a guy who was running this new offense that's gonna change the world of football. It was called a shotgun offense. And we knew nothing about that because we was all running the football rough and tumble. I think line coaches sometimes take the athleticism out of guys. And you know, when I first started doing this, my academy here in Atlanta, I started going on Twitter. Paul was still coaching then. And I stayed in battle, seemed like, with a bunch of guys because they all told me, you can't teach high school guys pro stuff. And I said, what is pro stuff? Like what is that? I said, when Tom Brady throws the football, doesn't Tom Brady go back to L position? He throws it, does he go forward shoot? They said, yeah. I said, well, isn't that the way to throw a football? That's just the way to throw a football. It just happened to be a pro is doing that. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes line coaches take the athleticism out of guys because the way they were brought up training football. Everything is about pounding, boom, 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 boom. And I always say on Twitter, I say, well, that won't work versus the elite guys. Well, the elite guys are in the NFL. The elite guys are playing college football. You know what I mean? So we are the new skill positions. Like we have to be. If you don't think that way, you're hurting your guys. We are the new skill position. These guys are in these gyms. I've seen them across the country. These guys are in gyms. My boy Chuck Smith here in town. The other guys around the country, they are training skills and agility. If you're not training your linemen to be athletic, you're doing them a disservice. Like, if you look at the NFL, Bob and Paul will tell you, you see very few. Well, Paul, my last year with you, I was 340 and Bobby was what? Shit.
Depends. Depends if it was Friday or it was Monday.
You're not going to see linemen that size anymore, but we were big guys who can move. But the game is transitioned to so much speed and athleticism. You know, my last couple of years, I'm kind of going off base here a little bit. My last couple of years, my first couple of years, I was playing guys like Strahan, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, guys who was 6'4", 6'5", from 300 to 270, 260. Javon Curse's guys. My last couple of years, we go play the Colts. And I see, you know, you go down the depth chart, starting defensive end, Robert Mathis, 6'2", 240. Like, what? Yeah, right. This guy came 6'2", 240. He's the linebacker or he's the starting DN. On the other side was a guy by the name of Dwight Freeney. He was 6'1", 260. I'm like, okay, get out of here. These guys not starting. These guys started a new wave in the NFL that guys my size, you know, I was an old guy trying to block these guys. To me, the hardest guy I ever blocked was Robert Mathis. Because Rob can do things a 6'7" guy couldn't do. Rob could do an outside spin move. If you punch him, he was short enough to duck under your arms. You know what I mean? Right, Paul? You turn out, he's going to spin in on you. Something that a 6'5" guy could not do. So I'm seeing this ship. I said, damn, it's time for me to retire. These guys getting faster and smaller. Like, it's like our era, that's gone. And when I train guys now, say we have to train guys to face against guys who are giving you great movement and athleticism. So if you're a pounder, if you're a guy who pounding, and teaching your guys to pound the post, I learned the same way. I learned in college, you know, Coach Trickett, from Paul early on, we pounded the post. But then we stopped doing it because the pounding, these guys are too fast. The one move, and I'm kind of going off bases again, so you guys forgive me. The one move that I train all my guys from pro to college to high school, because the high school guys see these elite guys in camps. You're a high school guy, you play in your region, you may see one really good guy per year. But you see the real elite guys as you go to these college camps. And here's the one move everybody from high school, college to pro have a problem with. When the D at tackle, the DN goes upfield, fake inside, back outside. That sounds simple. I have it on my Instagram account at Big Willie 7179 of multiple guys getting beat with that same move. Because linemen, they don't know how to kick, shuffle, back to a kick. Now, you heard my word.
Is that what you're saying?
Say again?
They turn. Is that what they do?
I'm telling you. So what we kicked and we call it a post. We post inside the post foot. To me, these guys are getting too fast for you to come upfield, go inside, for you to take one step inside, and he's back outside of you now because you can't kick because your post was too hard. So kick, shuffle, back to kick. Like, so to me, that's one of the most basic moves I think every tackle should focus on, because what happens is, guy kick, he goes inside, that guy pounds real hard, boom. Now he edges you because you can't get back out because your body weight is adjusted. So what I teach guys, I learned this from a guy who trains basketball guys, a good friend of mine named Bo Bell. He's played over in Europe, and in Europe, they train their basketball players to be able to use both feet. So I teach kick. When he goes inside, I push off the back foot, push this foot. So I go, let me show it to you. I go kick, push off this foot back here, push off the back foot again. So it's kick, shuffle to a kick. It's not kick, pound. It's not kick, pound, reach. No, it's not that. You have to be able to be light as a feather. And it seems simple, but I can show you play after play, guys getting beat on that move. It's a simple move. It's a DN goes left field, head face inside, back out. You know what I mean? And just being able to have the light enough feet and moving from, like I said earlier, moving from your ankles, because if you have too much pressure in your back, you can't make that move. You know what I mean? As usual, I always start off.
Let me tell you, Willie, I taught a kid that today. I said, I'm down here in Naples, and I taught him, how the guy goes inside, how to, rather than stepping with your inside foot, to push with your back foot, and your inside foot naturally goes. You know what I mean? So they both go. Back. And you should have seen his eyes. I mean, his eyes lit up like, oh my God, I'm quick. I can get there, and like you say, it's how they train. Who shuffles more than anyone? Basketball players, and that's, I think that's wonderful. I think that's great.
So we call it being able to use both feet, because there's no way you can post fast enough to get back on the guy who does a hard inside fake on you to get back out. It's impossible. I mean, these guys are too damn fast. You have to be able to train both feet. So when you don't do that and you're used to pounding, well, those moves, hell, and I can't believe 96, played through 98. The first time I saw that move was, played through 08. The first time I saw that move was 06. No, 05. 10 years in the league by Rob Mathis and Freeney. Because they were so good at making you go inside. If you try to punch him, Rob Mathis could outside spin move on you, and you miss him, he's on your back, second your quarterback. You know what I mean? So if you're not training your feet, which is the old coach is saying, your feet first, you're gonna be behind. I kind of started off wrong. I do this all the time when I get to talking. My stance. So if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and Paul knows this, I teach in my past stance because I've set you up. I've set you up in your stance, your ankle, your big toe to your ankles. I teach because I learned this. My son was a receiver. He's at Georgia Tech now playing receiver. In 2000, whatever, his 8th grade year, I saw a video of Ocho Cinco, Chad Johnson, my former teammate. He was down in Miami. He was teaching receivers about take get-offs, routes as a receiver. And I always thought that receivers, I'm a lineman, I didn't know. I thought receivers always use their back leg to push off of. I always thought they went from here and used their back leg to push off and go. Well, I learned through watching Chad that day, the receivers drive off their front leg. And if you get into a receiver stance and look at it, and if you're a receiver, getting a receiver stance and drive off your front leg, you see that's way more quicker if you're facing a guy who has press coverage on you. right in front of you, and you know he's going to jam your ass up. It's a quicker move for you to drive off your front foot than your back foot. Your back foot gives him time to say, oh, he's moving, jam you. Like, I advise anybody to do it and just feel it. Like you the receiver stance. If you say set, go, and push off your back foot, then go, you're slower. When I saw that, I said, damn, I never knew that. I always thought guys drove off their back foot. They're driving off their front foot. Well, if you get into a 40 stance, right? If you get into a 40 stance on a 40, you're going to drive off your front foot. It's faster. If the clock is on you in a 40 and you push up your back foot, that clock starts, you're going to be slow as hell. So, right? Got a sports performance guy here, Coach Murphy. So, in my pass stance, I teach guys to drive off their front foot because I've seen, just in the NFL, and I've seen it in high school, because I was a national coach for the opening with Nike for last 3 years. And I would see these guys, these kids, high school kids, I saw the college, pro guys, the guys that take these big ass kicks, they're slower versus the real fast guys. Now, it can happen. I mean, I kicked with my back foot my whole career. I never did any of this. I always say, I teach 60% of what I did and 50% of what I just learned. You guys always say, hold on, that's 110%. But don't you, all y'all coaches always say, give 110%, don't you? So that's your 110%. So I teach 60% of what I did and 50% of what I've learned in retirement. And like I say, I kicked with my back foot for years. But now that I trained myself to drive off my front leg, I said, oh, damn, I probably could have blocked Mathis and these guys a lot better because it's really good. Driving from your front leg is nice. Something you got to practice over and over and over and over again. Don't try to go in a game. I remember Paul said this one time. Don't try new shit in a game. You know what I mean? You try new stuff. You practice it. You train it over and over and over again. And I always say, a buddy of mine told me, an amateur practices until he gets it right. A pro practices until you can't get it wrong. So with your stance, you have to train your stance and train this pass pro. I'm gonna call it a drive set. We always say kick set. Some people say drive, whatever. But you really are driving off your front leg. So when I saw the receivers are faster, I said, damn, a tackle, a lineman, a guard has to be faster versus a real quick guy. Because what happens is, you guys see the guys, these linemen are training, they're training, everybody wants to spin, everyone dips, everyone cross chops now. And I think versus the real fast guys, being able to drive from your front leg, with your big toe and drive and kick back, it keeps you more grounded to the ground instead of you getting that real big kick set that's in the air. Watch a lot of these NFL guys, you see them kick, and if you pause it for 1 second, they're on one leg. So they can't be athletic. You can't be athletic on one leg because you're not grounded to the ground. So versus the fast guys, I always advise guys to front leg drive. Make sense?
Yeah. Hey, let's take some questions, Willie. All right. If any of you guys have questions, send them to Coach Sarkowski. We got about 20 minutes left here. And I know hopefully some guys got some questions that they can put to him. And Chris, you can ask if there's anything. Go ahead, take over, Chris.
So hold on. So we only going an hour?
We can
Willie,
go.
Hey, Willie, Joe Thomas, you were with us at Cleveland. Joe Thomas did the same thing you did. Exact same thing with that up foot.
Yes. Joe and I talked about that. Joe, it was funny. Joe told me one time, he said, Willie, I came in the league in 2007. He said, and I was trying to do the same stuff that you and Whitworth were doing. He said, but you guys are like 25 pounds bigger than me. But I learned it from Joe too. Like all the guys who are really skilled guys with their feet, Joe is a real skilled guy with his feet. They front leg drive because it makes you faster and quicker versus those really fast guys. So I can believe that. Paul, I got more time than an hour now. I thought we were going like more than that.
3 or 4 hours?
definitely not 3 or 4 hours.
We got one question submitted. If you want to start with that, does that work for you, Coach?
Go ahead. Yeah, Chris, you got it.
Awesome. So, Landon asked, what's your pre-snap process as a tackle from stance to keys?
So, great question. And I kind of have that written down a little bit. So, I'm gonna do a shameless plug real quick on one of my websites is training.olineblock.com. I got 12 videos on there. I talk about a process I call, it's not a word, it's FEH, feet, eyes, hands. So my stance, I start with my stance first. Whether you're a guard or tackle, centers we know, centers are even feet, guards and tackles are staggered. I like the way Paul teaches, if your hands are staggered, your feet are staggered, your hands are staggered. So my first thing, I come up, I put that front foot in the ground and I ground it in the ground. So that front leg being grounded in the ground is to my brain, telling my brain, that's my drive leg, that's my push leg. I then get out of my stance, like I was saying before, I don't back bend, I engage my core. I use a word called key up. And your key muscles are the muscles, it's really important too, it sounds strange as hell, but your key muscles are the muscles that are under your abs. We all got guys on the car right now. We all have peed outside. You peeing outside, you about to get caught, and you stop yourself. The muscles you stop your pee with, or your key up muscles, those are muscles that give you your power and your strength. When you're bench pressing, that last push comes from your feet out your core. So in my stance, I engage my ankles on the ground. I engage my core as I'm going down, because I always found out that if you're a lineman, if you get hit, you engage to a guy, and you got a soft abs, he's gonna drive your ass back. That's one of my keys in stopping the bull rush, is being able to engage your key muscles at the last second. But if you can't do that, I advise you to just engage your core the entire time as you're going down in your stance, and keep that engagement. But feet, eyes, hands. I'm in my stance. Get down. Of course, you guys know this. I don't talk about football plays. You guys got enough coaches on these calls that go with plays all the time. They break down plays. I teach skills. I'm not a football coach. When you're down in your stance, the play has been called. Boom, boom, boom. You do your points, get your calls, whatever. Now as you drive, so now as a tackle, let's talk about a tackle. It's my thing. As a tackle, I want to get there, and Paul and Bob both teach this. It's been passed down for years and years. As a tackle, I'm gonna look at my defensive end. And now Paul will tell you this real quick too. There's rules and a way for you to win almost every pass rush rep, I believe, that you do in one-on-one pass rush. Paul will tell you, I lost very few pass rush reps as I got going in my career, because I learned the tricks to them. And one of the main tricks is, the first is, I want to look at the defensive end as a tackle and see where's the imaginary line between he and the quarterback. You know what I mean? I'm gonna look at it, and I'm gonna physically look at it and say, okay, he's a little bit wider. It may take me 2 steps. The worst thing a lineman can do, this is my high school guys, the worst thing you guys can do at a one-on-one pass pro camp is go to the line of scrimmage without a plan. You gotta have a plan to block guys. If you go to the line of scrimmage and say, okay, on set hut, I'm gonna just go. That's terrible. That's why I say feet, eyes, hands. So now your feet, in the process, the whole F-E-H, my feet have to move me to my spot. My spot as a tackle is gonna be the imaginary spot, a line drawn between the D-end and the quarterback. At guard, same thing. Now, even though guards and tackles have different rules, as a tackle, I want to be able to set the so-called half-man relationships. I say half-man, I say also knee to crouch. You know what I mean? But your feet have to move you into position. I think also as you get going, your eyes are going to dictate to you also the next part of the rush. So the first part of the rush is get into position. Your first part of your plan is how many kick sets do I have to take to get to this guy? That's looking at the spot. And for guards, as Paul always say all the time, guards can't set half a man. It makes sense. The guards in one-on-one pass rush, you want to cover that guy up. So when I kick set, I'm going to kick set knee to crotch. Listen, here's one of the tricks. As a guard, high school guy, if you set knee to crotch to that guy, he's going to see the inside. These high school D linemen are going to always go to the inside rush. So if you just overset the guy by going knee to crotch, you're going to make him go inside. And in one-on-one pass rush, who's sitting next to you? The damn center. He's never going to move. We tell our centers, don't move until you get bumped. So you see a lot of times you see high school guys. I see college guys do it in college one-on-one pass rushes. They come to the line of scrimmage in one-on-one pass rush drill with no plan. You gotta have a plan. My feet, F-E-A-H, my feet move me to the spot. My eyes now play a huge part of what's happening next. I see guys like they'll do a kick set and just miss the guy. And you ask them, what were you looking at? No clue. So, Paul, real quick, what do you tell your guys to look at when they
I teach now the tackles. This is what I teach now. You said some of these things that you do that you didn't do then.
Yeah.
I do it now because since I've retired, that's all I do is I sit around and I think about this stuff. You know what I mean? So there's things that if I were coaching now, I'd teach it, you know, and that's what I'm doing, working with the guys and sharing. I teach the tackles now. I learned this at a cool clinic years ago, and I didn't pay any attention to it, right? That I cross read. I look at a point somewhere in their target, but really the rusher's outside hand tells me everything.
Yes.
And I let his outside hand dictate what I do with my hands. And if his outside hand comes at me, I put my hands on him. Yep. If his outside hand comes at my hand, I pull it away.
Yep.
If I see in my vision his cross to get my hand, I pull it away. So that's what I really see. I see the target through to his outside hand.
That's kind of a big part of the process. So feet, getting to my point, my eyes are telling me, your eyes, like in college, Rick Trickett always told us right here, it'd be funny. If you told a guy to get in the stands and open your eyes up like really big, like big ass eyes. I do it to ninth graders down. So he got to open his eyes up really, really wide. Just hold it for like 10 seconds. Big eyes. Your brain will kind of like get a little woozy a little bit because what it's doing is it's bringing more light to your eyes. The more light comes to your eyes, the more alert your brain is. People say, what? When someone scares you, right? You get scared. You do what? You buck your eyes, right? So when your eyes are bucked, you're more alert. So when I pass block, I'll come to the scrimmage, I'll get in the stands and get my eyes really big and focused. Because to me, a pass rush is the most heightened thing in all of football. Like somebody can get really, really killed in this. And it's our responsibility. So my eyes are bucked to my stance, turning my brain on. I'm alert for everything. I'm going to see every move he's going to do. So to me, your eyes is a very underrated portion of a pass set. The last part I see somebody say your hands. So it's feet, eyes, hands. Learning what to do with your hands is probably the most difficult part of pass pro because so many guys teach different things. I know we all in here, Paul and Bob, we all kind of teach something similar. I came up with certain different points. Like to me, if I'm playing tackle or guard, on Twitter, there's a very crucial point right here that gets people up in arms. I'm not a fan of two-hand punches, just not. I said earlier, we're facing probably the most athletic guys in the history of football right now. And if you talk to any of those D linemen, they all say, please God, let him two-hand punch me. They all said, they want you to two-hand punch. But none of them can figure out, if they were smart, they would get on these Zoom calls like this and talk to guys. And when you see Joe Thomas and all these guys, ex-NFL guys, and coaches on different calls on TV, they would listen because To me, my rule is if a guy is in my outside shade, and when I kick back, he stays in my outside shade as a tackle or guard, I cannot two-hand punch him. That's the dumbest shit ever. It's dumb. I'm just saying. I say words like dumb to shock people. Oh, he called it dumb. Yes, it's dumb. That's how crucial I think it is. I'm playing right tackle. You're on my edge, and you're rushing right here on my edge. I can't turn and two-hand punch you. Like, just do it to your, have your son or your daughter walk to you and see how strange it feels for a guy to walk on your outside shoulder. If you fighting somebody, if I was fighting a guy, I would tell guys this. If I'm fighting a guy, he's on my outside shoulder. When I do this, two hands, or when I step back a little bit and give him an outside hand and do a 1-2. So when a guy's on your outside edge, I believe you must use independent hands if he's rushing on your outside edge. Now, how you use independent hands, there's different ways to use them. What we teach is, we like to teach using the club. I started doing the club, and it made sense to me when Paul and I went over it, that I tore my middle finger up, my second year in the league, I think. I tore it up, this finger right here, it won't bend. This finger hurted me so much that if you did this right here, tears come up in my eyes. So, we had a guy by the name of John Copeland. John Copeland loved to chop my outside hand down. I would punch it, he would chop it down all the damn time. And again, if that finger get touched, I want to kill somebody. Like, so I started doing I didn't realize I was doing it. When Copeland go for my hand, I would swoop my hand around so he would miss it. I tried pulling it back, and it always made me turn. And he would go inside on me. I said, damn, what am I gonna do? He kept chopping my hand was hurting. Paul, I had cast everything on my fingers, everything. And I started doing, so Paul started doing the club move. I started doing the swoop. So Copeland would miss my outside hand, and he would almost fall to the ground. He would chop for it, he would miss it, and would almost fall to the ground. And the club move, Paul, would make sense for me to go, boom, to his hip. He's always falling to the ground. I learned early on with that club move that I go outside shoulder pad, I go right to his hip. If he keeps moving, I've done it before. I show high school kids this, it works. It sounds horrible to teach on tape, but it is what it is. If you go, boom, outside hand to his shoulder, hand to his hip, if he keeps moving, you're gonna break his hip. Usually guys fall to the ground. I gotta film my Instagram account of me doing it to Peppers, to several guys. When the hand goes outside to the hip, if they keep moving, it'll break their hip. So what they do is, guys, they fall to the ground. You know what I mean? They fall to the ground. I go, boom, left side, outside hand, boom. Paul teaches this right here a lot too. Paul teaches if outside hand goes down the middle of the guy, he calls it death. It makes sense because if your outside hand is in the middle of his chest, that means his outside hand is outside of your hand, he's gonna swipe it down. You see guys get down. So when guys go outside hand, your outside hand should go to his outside shoulder pad. Your hand going that far is gonna trigger him. I've seen it a million times. If your hand goes to his outside shoulder, it's gonna trigger him to use his inside hand to chop it down. So now he's gonna be sideways and you go, boom, right to his damn hip. I've seen it. Go to the D lineman and say, if I do this, what you gonna do? They're gonna automatically go inside chop and it turns their shoulders. Now he's facing that way. I'm going hand to his hip. Now, you can also go outside punch. I've seen guys do it both. They outside punch. Willie, that's something Joe told me too. Joe Chalmers told me too. He believes in the same thing. He's told me that in camp when I was up there working with you guys, and he put it on Twitter one day. And because I put on Twitter, I said, these guys better learn how to use independent hands. And Joe said, yeah, if they don't, they won't be in the NFL very long. You know what I mean? So now, high school people always say, well, when do you use two hands? Again, if I'm fighting a guy, he's in my outside edge. I'm not going to two-hand punch him. I'm an independent hand puncher, be a puncher. Now, if a guy runs right into me, we all know I can't use one hand to stop him. It's freaking impossible. So now, if you're running right into me, I'm gonna use two hands. Now, here's what I won't do. I won't go like this, two hands like that, because why? Paul did a great demonstration in our clinic here last year. He showed some of the small guys. I use it all the time too. If your hands, we learned this early on. If my hands are lower than your hands, and I'm 340 pounds and you're 190, if my hands are high and your hands are underneath my hands, you're gonna knock my ass backwards. So when coaches, you hear coaches yell, old school coaches, run blocking, get your ass low, get lower. To me, it's not getting your ass low, it's getting your hands low. If your hands are low, your butt automatically sinks down. Like do it. If your hands are low, your butt automatically gets low. If your hands are high, you're gonna have a high ass. So versus the bull rush, when a guy rushes me like this, bull rushing me, my hands go underneath, we call a double under, and I stop him by using my hand, my low hand breaks the leverage of his hands. Watch this, come here, Coach Murph. So watch this. So Coach Murph got his hand, straight out to me, like this. He's bull rushing me. If I do this, he's gonna win. But watch now how I change the leverage now. If I do this, I change the leverage. His arms are already moving. If I sit down real hard, it stops him totally. So he rushes to me like that, bull rushing me. I'm gonna go here. His arms now, he can't get his arms reached out that far. But if he bull rushes me like that, I go like this. He's gonna win and knock me back. So the 2 points. The guys on my edge, left tackle, left guard, right tackle, right guard, right tackle. Outside edge, I'm gonna use independent hands. How you use those independent hands? Like I say, if you go to training.olineblock.com, I do a whole breakdown with guys showing how to do that. The guy,
let me get you a question here. This guy asked a question about your technique on the outside zone, and let me phrase it this way. Because when we used to run 16 chase to the open side, it was really outside zone, right? And you blocked, remember how you used to block, who was that guy from Tennessee? You used to block him damn near to the fucking sideline all the time. The big, what was his name? The really good Walker?
Gary Walker?
Oh, he was really good. He was from Florida. Kevin Carter. Yeah, and you used to block them there, and their defensive line coach used to always be like, how the hell? Explain the front side tackles technique on a defensive end to the open side on a wide zone, which we called 16, right? What was your technique on that? How'd you do that? That was a question one of the coaches had.
Now, it's funny you said it because the last 6 years, when I first started doing this, doing my academy, I was teaching all outside zone. But then in high school, I started learning high school and college. Even in the NFL, you guys start running a lot more inside zone. The outside zone to me, okay, here's the big thing for me. As a lineman, when I train linemen come to me linemen come to me outside of the high schools. And so when I teach run blocking, I teach a lot of run blocking stuff, because I believe you gotta be a dominant run blocker. The first thing I asked high school linemen, I even asked some college guys this. I asked one pro guy this, he didn't know this. I asked them, I say, okay, outside zone, right? What is your back doing? They say, what? So I said, give me your play call. So say if the play's called red to the right, 92, outside, 94, outside zone. I said, what is your back doing? You have no clue what the back is doing. So I'm like, when you guys run plays, the guys never tell you what your back is aiming at, and so how far you should move the guy? No. So we teach running backs. We put backs in the backfield. We teach all the guys. We teach football. So to me, outside zone to me as a tackle, I learned this. I learned my job as a tackle was to only move this guy from here to here. That was my job. My job wasn't to blow this guy off the line. It was to get him to move from right here to there. If I could move him 5 yards to the hash, because as a tackle, my job was to widen, they want pass protection. It was to give the running back some width to run. The guards and tackles, the guards and centers give you the depth inside push. With the tackle, I want to move this guy with my footwork. So now, if I'm in high school, most high school D-line coaches teach guys to read the tackle. And pros, they do something different now. Them guys don't fall for it no more. Early on, when outside zone started running, Paul and Bob tell you this, those ends move nice and pretty. They move. When you move your outside foot and took your step, they move with you. But as time started going on, them guys stopped moving and started playing the inside half more. Well, in high school, I want to learn how that D lineman is being taught to play football. If his coach tells him to move and read my headgear, I'm going to move him with my feet. So if I move a step and he's the last, there's no outside guy on him. There's nobody outside of that defensive end. That means to me, he's the he keeps the contained guy. So you can't get wider than him if you're the offensive lineman. So he's making sure he don't get reach. So my first step is I'm gonna take a step, and as in all run block we said earlier, I'm gonna take my 2 steps and get my second step down his crotch. But I gotta first get this guy to kind of move first. If he's gonna move to the outside, I also know I'm gonna be vulnerable to the inside. So I'm gonna take my steps. I'm gonna have a strong inside hand. So as I take my 1-2 steps, my inside hand is gonna land on this guy up underneath him at the same time as my second step hits the ground. Because if it's going outside zone, if you go too far, the guy, he comes inside. So your inside foot landing down his crotch keeps you from going too far past him. Like, I kind of always hate doing these. I hate demo and run blocking on Zoom calls because I want to show it. So every run block, your second step lands down his crotch. Boom, boom, 1, 2. But in these outside zones, you got to make him move with you a little bit. If he's moving, now if he don't move, if he doesn't move, you got to come to the sideline and tell your coach, he's not moving with me. Let's run something outside this guy. You know what I mean? If he's playing you strong or 2-gapping you, and he won't move with you, you got to tell your O-line coach, he's not moving. We got to run something outside of him because he's staying inside strong with me. So as a tackle, I just always thought my job was to move this guy from this place to here by keeping a strong inside hand and staying pressure on him and driving. I mean, I think when you overthink it gets, now a reach block is something different.
Yeah, tell us about the reach block.
Yeah, the block I hate all in football. The block that I reach, the block that I wish would be outlawed in football.
Yeah.
Really do. It should be outlawed because no matter what the coach tell you to do, that D ain't gonna do something different. So you say go hard, he gonna come inside. Don't go too fast, he comes outside. I hate the reach block, honestly, Paul. So I don't even want to talk about it because it's a nightmare for me. Because I have some plays personally myself get blown up of me trying to do reach blocks. And, I hate the block. I really do. So I don't want to talk about it.
Chris, you got some questions?
Yeah, we got one question here from Coach Best. He wanted to know what your thoughts were on dropping the post foot versus an inside move.
So again, when I said earlier, Coach, when I played 60, I teach 60% of what I did and 50% of what I learned would give you 110%. I was born into football from college into pros. You never drop the post on the inside move. And that's why I say I learned in retirement. So I'm at the opening with Nike. We travel around the country doing these camps with these kids. So at the finals, we pick all the top kids in the country. We do it at the finals. We take them to Oregon, Nike headquarters, and they bring out pro guys to come work with us to assist us. So Trent Williams came out, and we watching Trent's film, and the guy did an inside move about 3-4 years ago. I want to say when Quinn Nelson was still in college because Quinn Nelson came to the camp. And the first thing on the inside move was Trent Williams said, I dropped my inside post to regain leverage. And I said, what? Inside post? Like, that don't sound right. But then I saw a video of it, and Paul and Bob, I don't know if you guys know for sure, I think Callahan teaches that. Did he not?
Yeah,
right?
we dropped the post. Yeah.
The post. So early on in football, in the 90s, dropping the post was a cardinal sin. Paul would be grading your ass out 0, 0, 0. That's a negative.
Because those go with two-hand punching. If you're a puncher and the guy goes inside, you would never drop your post. You'd keep it up and you'd punch, right? But if you use independent hands and the guy goes inside, yeah, you drop your post.
And it makes sense to drop the post.
Yeah,
you know, it makes sense. Like, I've learned in football, man, like, you know, Paul will tell you this on Twitter, guys come at us all the time. And I told guys 2 years ago, you do, like, none of us are in your room. You know what I mean? We're not in your room. Like, I can't tell you exactly what these techniques work for, you know. This guy right here was my high school left guard. He's fucking 190 pounds. You know what I mean? But he was crazy as hell, and he was tough as hell. You know what I mean? So I can show him stuff that, look, man, my whole line, we had a good ass line. We rushed for 1,900 yards. I only coached 1 year and I stopped. I hated the head coach. But I love these kids though. But every technique won't work for every person. I understand that. And coaches, guys get all in a fix. They be in DMs telling me, man, that won't work. I'm saying it will work if you know how to teach it. Now, as a coach, you have to figure out what works best for the guys in your room. Everything we say on these calls, on Twitter or Instagram, everything might not work for you. The same with a player. I tell a player, I'm gonna give you a little bit of stuff that I may know, but then it's my job to figure out what things work for you well. And I think coaches got to do that. I think players got to do it. I've heard people say, well, Trent Williams and Willie Anderson and these guys, these are some of the best guys in the world. You can't tell high school guys. I mean, these high school kids are doing algebra and geometry. They're studying world history. They're doing physics. They can damn learn some shit with their bodies. Come on, stop. It's like the golfers and tennis players are all pro. They're learning. A golfer and a tennis player do the exact same things pros do as amateurs. It's just as an amateur, they probably can't do it as effectively as a pro. So whatever the technique is, I think you learn it, you figure out what's best for your guy or your group, and you put it in use. But I think it's also good to get as much info as you can. You know what I mean? Because
we're going to wrap it up there. It's been really fun. One thing that this is true, Willie, like particularly the last 3 years, he never got beaten a one-on-one. Now, why is that? Well, I don't think he took a one-on-one the last 3 years that he played. No. No, but he didn't. He never got beat. And on 28th and 29th of February, you're all invited to come to Atlanta. 28th, 29th of February, Atlanta. We're going to do a 2-day lineman camp. Willie and I are going to do it, and we're going to get a bunch of college guys there to help us out and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to be a big deal, and we're looking forward to that. You can follow Willie. What's that behind you there? Look on the board there, guys. You can get his videos there at trainer.olineblock.com. Is that what it says?
Training.
Okay.
Block.com.
There you go. You can follow him on Twitter, of course. You can follow him on Instagram. I don't do Instagram, but whatever that is.
Twitter, and, my name is the same on both of them. Big Willie 7179, and also too, Paul. I didn't get to it today with my coach Murphy, who does my sports performance. I wanted to talk about earlier. I'm not going to do it now. About the movement stuff that we teach our linemen to do, the weight workouts that Coach Murphy thinks are essential to linemen. You can follow Coach Murphy on Twitter, Instagram at Coach Murphy7. So he trains all my linemen. He and I came up 2 years ago with a program of how we put our linemen through a system, our academy, of training with him, doing the movements they're going to do with me. Because I think, I said earlier, the movements you teach your linemen are super essential. Those days of just trying to squat for max, to me, those days are old. You got to have guys developing skill development and sports performance. And Not letting, especially high school kids, all guys really, but the high school kids, they all go to these trainers for so-called skills and agility, and the trainer have them doing the rope drills, and that doesn't equate to being a better, quicker, more efficient lineman. You got to do movements that you're going to do in your training. You got to do those in your training that you're going to do in football. So follow Coach Murphy too.
Great. And then next month is going to be Kyle Flood from Alabama. The line coach at Alabama is going to be our clinician. And then the next month in March is going to be Alex Mirabel, who's a terrific line coach at the University of Oregon. So we got some good clinics coming up. We got some Patreons going, and we're going to sign off right now. Chris, thank you very much to you and Princeton and all the work you do on the Zoom, and Willie and everyone. Thank you very much. This was a fun day.